Before Tokyo existed, there was silence across a vast tidal plain by the Pacific. Where the Sumida River met the sea, fishermen mended their nets beneath endless skies. Cranes waded through shallow waters hunting for fish in the early morning mist and light. Mist rolled off the Pacific at dawn, shrouding the marshland in white silence and mystery. This place was called Edo, and from that quiet shore, a great city would rise to power. Stay with us for the entire history of Tokyo. 12 minutes, 4 centuries, 1 city. In 1457, a warlord named Otodokan built a small castle overlooking these quiet marshes. It was nothing much, a wooden fortress in the wilderness barely worth a name on any map. But it controlled the river, the bay, and the crucial road to the north of the region. Farmers tilled rice paddies in the shadow of its walls as merchants began gathering there. Edo began to grow slowly and quietly, waiting patiently for its moment to arrive. Then in 1590, everything changed forever when the great unifier Hideyoshi made his move. He gave these eastern lands to his most dangerous rival, the general Tokugawa Ieyasu. It was meant to be an exile, banishment to the edge of civilization far away from power. Instead, it became the foundation of an empire that would rule all of Japan for centuries. Ieyasu arrived in Edo and saw not swamps, but boundless possibility hidden in the marshes. He conscripted tens of thousands of workers from across the region to transform the land. They drained wetlands, diverted rivers, and built intricate canal systems across the plain. Entire hills were flattened to fill the bay with earth, creating new land for the buildings. The city doubled in size, then doubled again as construction echoed day and night endlessly. By 1603, Ieyasu had won the greatest prize of all, becoming shogun, ruler of all Japan. And he made Edo his capital, the seat of real power in the nation from that moment forward. Every feudal lord was ordered to build a grand mansion in the city and live there always. They had to spend half the year under the shogun's watchful eye in his capital city of Edo. Their wealth flowed into Edo like a river of gold and silver from across the entire nation. Artisans, merchants, and laborers flooded in to serve the growing population of the lords. Within a generation, it became the largest city on earth with over 1 million people living. More than London, more than Paris, more than Constantinople at its height in the Far East. Edo was a sprawling city of wood and paper, a marvel of achievement, and a tinderbox ready. The streets teemed with life at every hour, samurai in silk robes carrying their 2 swords. Merchants hawked fresh fish from the bay, their voices competing loudly in the morning air. Laborers bent under enormous loads of rice bales and sake barrels through the narrow streets. Kabuki theaters roared with laughter and thunderous applause through the long, warm evenings. Pleasure districts glowed with thousands of paper lanterns as twilight fell across the city. The smell of grilled eel and miso soup hung thick in the evening air throughout the streets. Sake flowed freely in the izakayas, but beneath all prosperity, a shadow loomed over the wood. Fire was the constant threat. On March 2, 1657, the city burned in what became known as the Great Meireki Fire disaster. It started in a Buddhist temple and spread like a living, hungry thing through wooden homes. Wooden houses exploded into towers of fire as the wind whipped the flames into howling demons. Entire districts vanished in hours, swallowed by advancing walls of orange flame and smoke. Families ran through streets of choking smoke, gasping desperately for air that burned lungs. The heat was so intense that the Sumida River steamed and bubbled like a giant cooking pot. Over 100,000 people died, more than the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings combined. 2/3 of Edo turned to ash in a single night of horror that scarred the city forever. When the sun rose, the survivors stood in the ruins and wept for everything they had lost. But Edo refused to die. The shogunate rebuilt with fury and precision in the months that came. Wider streets to stop fires spread, open fire breaks every few blocks across the entire city. Stone warehouses that could withstand flame were built everywhere to protect valuable goods. They created the world's first organized fire brigade, the Haikushi, equipped for firefighting. Carpenters and plasterers swarmed the blackened districts like ants rebuilding their own hill. The city rose again, denser and stronger than before, determined to survive whatever came next. By 1720, Edo had grown to over 1.2 million souls, reclaiming its title once again. It was a phoenix reborn in wood and stone and sheer human will that refused to ever surrender. Then silence fell over the island nation like a curtain closing on contact with the outside. For over 200 years, Japan closed its doors completely to all foreign contact forever. No foreigners allowed on its soil. No foreign trade permitted. No change tolerated at all. Edo thrived in isolation, a floating world perfecting art, theater, and poetry in peace. The city grew exquisite gardens and wrote beautiful haiku about cherry blossoms in springtime. But the world outside was moving forward relentlessly, building steamships, railroads, empires, and it was coming to Japan's shores, whether the shogunate was ready for the change or not. On July 8, 1853, 4 black ships appeared on the horizon of Edo Bay, like ghosts of doom. American warships under Commodore Perry, bristling with modern cannons, demanding open trade. The shogunate, terrified by superior Western technology they could not match, finally submitted. They signed the treaty, and with that signature, isolation shattered like delicate glass breaking. Japan awoke from its long dream to find itself centuries behind the modern industrial world. Chaos erupted across the nation within years as bitter civil war tore Japan apart completely. Competing factions battled for control while samurai clashed in the streets with modern rifles. Blood stained the cobblestones as the old order collapsed, and a new era struggled to begin. In 1868, the shogunate fell after 700 years of military rule over all of Japan. The young Emperor Meiji reclaimed the power his ancestors had lost so many centuries before. He moved his throne from Kyoto to Edo and renamed the city Tokyo, the new eastern capital. The age of the samurai had ended forever, and the age of the modern world had finally begun. Tokyo exploded into the future with breathtaking speed, as railways cut through ancient streets. Gas lamps lit the fashionable Ginza district where before there had been only darkness at night. Western suits and top hats replaced traditional kimonos on the streets of the transforming capital. Factories belched black smoke into the sky around the clock as heavy industry came to Japan. Telegraph wires spiderwebbed overhead, connecting the city to the wider world beyond the islands. The city rebuilt itself in brick and steel, racing desperately to catch up with Western powers. By 1900, Tokyo was utterly unrecognizable, a hybrid of East and West, old and new together. Then the ground shook violently at exactly 11:58 a.m. on September 1, 1923, without warning. The Great Kanto Earthquake struck with the force of 1,000 bombs being dropped at once. The earth heaved like ocean waves beneath the streets, as buildings collapsed into dust clouds. Gas lines ruptured and ignited instantly as fires broke out across the shattered city in minutes. The firestorm created tornado winds so powerful they hurled people into the flames while alive. Fireballs rolled through the streets, as over 140,000 people perished that day. Tokyo was reduced to smoking rubble and broken dreams scattered across the entire devastated plain. But Tokyo rose again, always again, rebuilding with reinforced concrete and ambition even faster. Sleek Art Deco towers replaced the wooden shops of old Japan across the modern city streets. Subways tunneled beneath ancient temple grounds as electric streetcars hummed through wide boulevards. Department stores with elevators opened their doors to the growing middle class of eager shoppers. By the 1930s, Tokyo was a glittering modern metropolis, the Paris of the East shining brightly. Neon signs lit up the nights, but darkness was gathering on the horizon of the militarizing nation. Japan turned toward militarism, imperial conquest, and total war against the Western world powers. On the night of March 9, 1945, 300 B-29 bombers unleashed hell from the sky above. Operation Meeting House, the deadliest air raid in history, rained incendiary bombs straight down, turning 16 square miles of Tokyo into a raging inferno in just a few devastating hours. The heat was so intense that canals boiled and metal melted into pools on the ground below. People suffocated before flames touched them as mothers clutched children in shelters underground. Over 100,000 people burned to death in a single night of apocalyptic fire and horror. The richest city in Asia became a graveyard of ash and silence under the rising morning sun. Tokyo had died again, but it would not stay dead as something stirred powerfully in the ashes. The will to rebuild, stronger than ever before, began to take hold in the hearts of survivors. The 1964 Olympics announced to the watching world that Tokyo had returned from death triumphant. Bullet trains connected the nation at speeds once thought impossible by the best human engineers. Elevated highways soared above the streets on pillars reaching toward the sky above the city. Glass and steel skyscrapers rose higher each year, each new one taller than the last ever built. Within 20 years, Tokyo became the beating heart of the world's second-largest economy, booming. The miracle had happened, and Tokyo was back stronger than it had ever been in its history before. Today, Tokyo is a megacity of 37 million people, the largest urban area on Earth. It is organized chaos and serene order together, blazing neon and Zen silence existing side by side. Ancient wooden temples stand beside glass towers that scrape the clouds in modern harmony. It has survived earthquakes, firestorms, total war, and occupation throughout all the centuries. And every single time it fell to its knees, it came back stronger and more alive than before. Tokyo has died and been reborn so many times that death itself seems tired of trying to stop it. A city that refuses to stay down and rewrites its own ending again and again forever. Subscribe to see where we go next, because the next story is just as extraordinary as this one.